What if the most traumatizing movie you ever saw was a cartoon? Most people assume animation equals family-friendly entertainment. But some filmmakers had other ideas. They created animated nightmares that sent children crying from theaters and left parents demanding their money back. One of these movies became the first cartoon ever slapped with an X rating. Another got banned because adults couldn't handle what they saw on screen. Here are 15 animated films that broke every rule and proved cartoons can be genuinely terrifying. 1. Akira, 1988. Katsuhiro Otomo's Japanese cyberpunk epic changed everything Western audiences thought they knew about animation. Set in a ruined future Tokyo, the plot follows two teenage bikers named Kaneda and Tetsuo, who stumble into a government plot involving children with devastating mental powers. Nothing prepared viewers for the brutality. Bodies were torn apart with shocking detail. The military crushed civilians. And Tetsuo's final transformation, where his abilities cause his body to balloon into a horrifying mass of expanding flesh, remains one of cinema's most disturbing sequences. The film earned an R rating, but countless parents ignored the warning because they assumed cartoons were automatically safe for kids. They were wrong. The movie proved animation could tackle hardcore science fiction and sparked an entirely new era of mature animated storytelling in the West. 2. Watership Down, 1978. Martin Rosen adapted Richard Adams's novel about rabbits, and families lined up expecting adorable woodland creatures having gentle adventures. What they got instead was a blood-soaked survival story about rabbit genocide. The opening scenes show a warren being destroyed by poison gas. Throughout the film, rabbits die in snares with their necks snapping audibly. Blood pools beneath dying characters. The villain General Woundwort runs his warren like a fascist concentration camp with brutal enforcement and propaganda. Despite receiving a U certificate, suitable for everyone in Britain, the film became infamous for traumatizing young viewers. When a UK television channel broadcast it on Easter Sunday in 2016, furious parents flooded social media. One memorable complaint asked who thought showing dead Easter bunnies to children was a good idea. The movie's death figure, a supernatural black rabbit who collects souls, haunted an entire generation. 3. The Black Cauldron, 1985. Disney's attempt at dark fantasy became their biggest embarrassment of the decade. The studio spent $44 million creating this tale about a young pig keeper trying to stop a skeletal sorcerer from raising an army of corpses. Children expecting singing animals and happy endings instead watched the terrifying horned king summon dead bodies from their graves. Main characters faced genuine mortal danger. Transformation sequences showed victims being consumed by dark magic in disturbing detail. The film earned Disney's first-ever PG rating for animation. It only made back $21 million domestically, a catastrophic loss. Studio executive Jeffrey Katzenberg personally ordered violent scenes removed, but the damage was done. Disney abandoned dark fantasy for years afterward, returning to safer fairy tales. Critics said it was too scary for kids and too shallow for adults. Nobody was happy. 4. Fritz the Cat, 1972. Ralph Bakshi demolished every expectation with this film about a college dropout cat tearing through 1960s counterculture. Fritz drops out of school, pursues countless romantic encounters, and accidentally starts a race riot. He basically represented every nightmare parents had about rebellious youth. Based on Robert Crumb's underground comics, the movie cost only $700,000 to produce, but became the first animated feature to receive an X rating from the Motion Picture Association. The controversy was massive, and so were the profits. The film earned over $90 million globally, proving huge demand existed for adult animation. Critics split between calling it brilliant satire and calling it garbage. Crumb himself despised what Bakshi did with his creation so much that he killed Fritz off in his own comics purely out of anger. The movie spawned a sequel that Bakshi refused to direct, and it remains among the most profitable independent animated movies ever produced. 5. The Plague Dogs, 1982. Martin Rosen followed his rabbit nightmare with something even darker. Two dogs escape an animal testing laboratory after enduring horrific experiments. Snitter had his brain surgically altered, causing terrifying hallucinations. Rawaf was repeatedly drowned and revived in endurance tests. Their escape into the wild becomes a desperate survival struggle as humans hunt them down while their own psychological damage haunts every moment. Laboratory scenes showed dogs being tortured with unflinching detail. Even after escaping, the animals face starvation, violent farmers, and constant threat of recapture. The tone offered almost no hope whatsoever. Several countries banned it completely. The United States cut multiple scenes just to get limited theatrical release. Critics acknowledged its powerful animal rights message, but agreed it was far too intense for young viewers. Many consider it the most psychologically brutal animated film ever made. 6. Heavy Traffic, 1973. Bakshi pushed even further with this brutal portrait of urban decay. The story follows Michael, an aspiring cartoonist trapped in a crumbling New York apartment with his dysfunctional family, navigating the seediest corners of city life. The filmmaker blended live-action backgrounds with animation in genuinely unsettling ways. Real photographs of poverty-stricken neighborhoods became backdrops for animated characters dealing with domestic violence and crime. Bakshi recorded actual conversations in Harlem bars and wove them into the film. Like Fritz, it received an X rating. Canada banned it in Alberta. Many American cities restricted distribution, but critics praised its unique style. Newsweek highlighted its dark humor and raw visual power. The New York Times called it a significant artistic development. Parents' groups were horrified by how realistically it portrayed urban violence. 7. Coonskin, 1975. Bakshi's most explosive creation used deliberately offensive racist imagery to attack American racism itself. He reimagined old folk tales as a modern crime saga following Brother Rabbit, Brother Bear, and Preacher Fox rising through Harlem's criminal underworld. The filmmaker intentionally employed every racist stereotype, exaggerated features, offensive caricatures, to create what he intended as a satirical mirror exposing the ugliness of American prejudice. The Congress of Racial Equality protested before the film even opened. Demonstrators set off smoke bombs at screenings. Paramount Pictures immediately dropped distribution. Young activist Al Sharpton joined the opposition. Complicating matters, the NAACP actually supported the film as effective criticism of racism. Black animators worked on production and understood Bakshi's intent. But the imagery was so shocking, most viewers couldn't see past the surface to recognize the deeper critique. Bakshi considers it his finest work. It remains almost impossible to see due to ongoing controversy. 8. The Secret of NIMH, 1982. Don Bluth left Disney to create this story about a widowed mouse trying to save her sick child. It looked like standard family entertainment. It wasn't. Mrs. Brisby must relocate her family before a farmer's plow destroys their home. But her son Timothy is too ill to travel. Her search for help leads her to rats who escaped a laboratory after undergoing intelligence-enhancing experiments. The film never flinches from showing the horror those animals experienced. Characters actually die on screen, sometimes violently. The villain Jenner murders another character by crushing him with a concrete block, shown in graphic detail. The family cat dragon nearly kills Mrs. Brisby multiple times. The climactic battle is genuinely vicious. Kids left theaters asking difficult questions about animal experimentation and why terrible things happen to good people. The movie found its audience on home video, where Bluth's willingness to treat children as intelligent viewers capable of handling complex emotions earned devoted fans. 9. Fire and Ice, 1983. Bakshi's fantasy epic looked like adventure fun, barbarians fighting evil sorcerers, but underneath lay themes of fascism and environmental destruction presented with surprisingly graphic violence. Princess Tigra gets kidnapped by Ice Lord Necron, whose frozen kingdom expands across the world, destroying everything. A clear allegory for totalitarian expansion and industrial pollution that flew over young viewers' heads. Characters died brutally on screen, with their suffering emphasized. Female characters wore revealing outfits that made parents uncomfortable. The rotoscoping technique created character movement that felt slightly wrong and unsettling. The PG rating didn't adequately warn families. Critics dismissed it as style without substance. Audiences largely stayed away, making it one of Bakshi's least successful theatrical releases. It eventually found appreciation on home video among fantasy art enthusiasts. 10. American Pop, 1981. Bakshi's ambitious epic tracked 4 generations of a Russian Jewish immigrant family pursuing success through American music. It sounded like a heartwarming celebration of culture. Instead, it showed how the entertainment industry destroys the artists it consumes. The rotoscoped animation gave everything a dreamlike quality that made the violence feel uncomfortably real. Characters die from war, drug overdoses, and gang violence. Each generation faces betrayal, addiction, or death-chasing fame. The film depicted the music industry as controlled by organized crime and corrupt businessmen. Parents expecting an educational journey through American music history instead witnessed World War I battlefields, drug deals gone bad, and the crushing reality of artistic ambition. It received an R rating and limited release. Critics praised its visual innovation, but audiences rejected its unrelenting cynicism. 11. Wizards, 1977. This post-apocalyptic fantasy seemed perfect for families. Wizards battling evil, colorful fairy folk, magical adventures. Parents assumed harmless entertainment. The story follows good wizard Avatar fighting his evil brother, Black Wolf, who discovers ancient Nazi propaganda films and uses them to rally mutant armies. The movie literally shows footage from World War II documentaries depicting real Nazi soldiers marching alongside animated demons. Black Wolf's forces use swastikas and hold rallies, deliberately echoing Nuremberg gatherings. One moment, kids watched cute fairies dancing in magical forests. The next, they saw tanks rolling through battlefields with propaganda playing behind them. The PG rating reflected 1970s standards, which were far more permissive. 20th Century Fox marketed it as family entertainment without warning about the dark historical themes. The deception infuriated parents. Critics remained divided between praising its ambitious political commentary and calling it inappropriate for children. 12. The Lord of the Rings, 1978. Bakshi's adaptation of Tolkien seemed like perfect family fantasy. Parents expected swords and sorcery adventure. They got genuinely frightening imagery created through rotoscoping, tracing over live-action footage to create animation. The technique made characters move in uncanny, unsettling ways. The Black Riders appeared as writhing shadows existing between life and death. Battle sequences depicted warfare with disturbing realism. Making matters worse, the studio marketed it without indicating it was only the first part of a planned trilogy. Families sat through 2.5 hours expecting resolution, only to have the story stop mid-narrative. Kids left confused and scared. Parents felt cheated. Bakshi never finished his version. The film recovered its $8 million budget, but generated mostly hostile reactions. Many viewers discovered Tolkien's work through it, and its influence on later fantasy animation is undeniable, even if people remember its problems more than its achievements. 13. Heavy Metal, 1981. This anthology adapted stories from an underground comics magazine, promising science fiction adventure. Families got an R-rated collection of violent, often troubling stories, combining graphic content in ways that shocked mainstream viewers. Multiple stories connected through a malevolent glowing green orb called the Loch Nar. Each segment escalated in intensity. Warriors fighting monsters, post-apocalyptic adventures filled with disturbing imagery. The treatment of female characters was particularly problematic, often depicting women as victims or fantasy objects. Marketing emphasized science fiction and fantasy while hiding the extreme content. Many parents brought older children expecting something like space adventure films. They didn't get that. Roger Ebert gave it 1.5 stars, calling it all flash, with no substance. The film found its audience later on home video, where fans of underground comics and rock music appreciated its anthology format and soundtrack. 14. Cool World, 1992. Bakshi's return to feature animation was supposed to be the first animated horror film, blending live action with cartoons in a story about traveling between reality and a cartoon universe. The studio completely rewrote his concept during production. The final product follows comic book creator Jack Deebs, transported into his own creation where cartoons and humans coexist. But mixing live actors with animated characters created deeply unsettling imagery. The cartoon world felt like barely contained chaos. The character Hollywood was designed as an overtly provocative cartoon who seduces the human protagonist in scenes that pushed boundaries of acceptability. The PG-13 rating didn't prepare families for how genuinely strange and inappropriate much of the content became. Bakshi disowned the final film, claiming the studio destroyed his vision. They wanted a family comedy. He intended adult horror. The compromise pleased nobody. Too weird for mainstream audiences, too sanitized for Bakshi fans, too confusing for children. It earned only $5.8 million against a $30 million budget. The failure convinced Bakshi to leave theatrical animation permanently. 15. The 9 Lives of Fritz the Cat, 1974. This sequel attempted cashing in on Bakshi's original success without his involvement or the original comic creator's approval. The result was a confused, often offensive mess, pushing boundaries purely for shock value. The movie presents 9 scenarios showing different versions of Fritz's life: college radical, space traveler, and more. Without Bakshi's satirical intelligence or artistic purpose, the stories became juvenile provocation rather than meaningful commentary. Animation quality dropped noticeably. Production values looked cheap. Many scenes existed only as excuses for inappropriate content without serving any narrative purpose. Critics universally rejected it. Box office performance was dismal. Even fans of the original condemned it as an inferior cash grab. The failure killed any possibility of further sequels and demonstrated that pushing boundaries without artistic intent produces nothing worthwhile. These 15 films proved animation isn't just innocent entertainment. Sometimes it's disturbing art that challenges every assumption about what cartoons can be. Some traumatized children. Some sparked important debates about artistic freedom. Some simply went too far. Which of these controversial animated films shocked you most? Did any of them actually advance animation as an art form? Or did some cross lines that should never be crossed? The debate continues.